guys, it's Will. It's Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society. Welcome back to the channel. I'm very, very excited today because we are joined by the most legendary Frank Djeng. So thank you for being with us. Formerly of Tai Seng, and does lots of audio commentaries for Blu-ray releases, and also associated with the New York Asian Film Festival. Generally acknowledged expert on Asian cinema. Does that basically cover everything?
Also the master of remaster.
The master of remaster. All right.
That's actually a nickname that Rick Myers gave me.
Is it really?
Long time ago, yeah.
You're also Team Godzilla, I see.
I'm also Team Godzilla, yes. I got tickets to see Godzilla vs. Kong next week. So.
Oh, wow. Right. I actually my oldest son, I wanted his middle name to be Godzilla.
Are you serious?
But my wife just would not. I would try to make like every bargain with her. I was like, you can pick any first name in the world. I just want the middle name to be Godzilla. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do it. So it didn't happen. But and I actually wanted to tell you before I started with the interview questions that I do a lot of Blu-ray reviews on my channel, and so I do a lot of audio commentary reviews. And you are the only person who's currently doing like a fair number of audio commentaries who's like universally loved by my audience.
I remember reading a comment from one of your many videos, and my favorite comment from one of the subscribers was, Frank Djeng knows his shit.
Yeah, that seems to be the general consensus. Like a lot of the other people who I talk about, there's some contention around, but you are like universally loved. So I'm very excited to.
The fact of the matter is, I spend a lot of time and effort in doing research before I do a commentary. I don't wing it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I spend days or weeks just getting all the information I could before I do the commentary. And let me show you something, okay? I just finished doing the Time and Tide commentary.
Oh, I'm really excited about that one. Yeah,
I think you're gonna love my commentary. I think it's almost as good as my throwdown commentary. But this is how much note I compile.
What?
Just to get myself prepared for Time and Tide.
Wow.
Yeah. Of course, I condense everything down to like a master, reading notes that I use during the commentary. No way can I flip through hundreds of pages while I was recording myself. But that shows you how much time and effort I spend on doing just like one single commentary.
And is that all for, like, are you doing internet research, or do you have books that you go through, or old releases of movies?
There's a combination of internet research and books, and also interviews with, the actors and the director. Most of them actually from Chinese interviews, because I think there are a lot of things in Chinese interviews where a lot of the Western audience wouldn't have known. So I thought some of the stuff that were in some of the stuff in those Chinese interviews are actually quite useful. And also quite, it's a good thing to include them so that the people listening to the commentary will gain a better appreciation of the film.
Yeah, that's with the throwdown commentary. The some of the stuff that I really loved about that was, you talked about like the culture of arcades in Hong Kong, and also how the movie was kind of post SARS and was like almost like a letter of encouragement to the people of Hong Kong and stuff like that.
Yes.
And all of that cultural context is something that I never would have had access to, only speaking English. And so it's really great to have all that information.
Well, yeah, I think in a way, the fact that I grew up in Hong Kong really helped.
Yeah.
I grew up in there. And I knew a lot of the culture thing. And of course, there's a lot of cultural references in the films. And so I try to, include them as much as possible in commentary. And actually, sometimes the most difficult thing I find in doing commentary is there's so much stuff that I want to talk about, or there's so much stuff I want to include, but just the fact that the film is constantly moving, right? You're watching it, you're trying to, include everything that you've done the research on, yet like the scene is over by the time you started talking, or you're in the middle of talking it. So that to me was the greatest challenge. But I, my main goal is to include as much as possible in a commentary, not because that fans get their money's worth, but also that I hope that I'm sort of like giving them not a lecture, but more like a lesson of appreciation, so that by the time they finish listening to the commentary, they just like that film a little bit more, they appreciate that film a little bit more. And I just hope that what I told them or what I was able to convey to them help that much.
And when you did you did a live commentary, is that correct, for My Lucky Stars?
Yeah. That was actually quite a good thing. That was for the Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office in Washington D.C. They were doing a Made in Hong Kong festival something last August, and they're like the feature presentation event was the live streaming of My Lucky Stars.
Oh yeah.
And so they got me and Scott Adkins doing the commentary while they play the film, and we have over 9,000 people sign up just to watch it.
Wow, that's
So
really cool.
that was pretty cool. You know, like in Comic-Con, the most people we can gather in that room, big room, was like maybe 3,000. So to have like close to 10,000 people just listening to a commentary, that was fantastic. That was really one of the highlights of my audio commentary career, you know. and I try to repeat as much as possible in my eventual commentary for Eureka's My Lucky Stars Blu-ray.
And was that did you know Scott Adkins? Like, did you talk before you did that?
Yeah, no. Well, we met each other in a Comic-Con because we were on the same panel together. You know, just so people don't know, I do this Super Kung Fu Hero Extravaganza panel at the San Diego Comic-Con, and I've been doing it since 1997.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we couldn't do it last year because of COVID, so we did it virtually.
I saw the virtual one.
Yeah, it wasn't that. It could be better, but that was our first time, you know, and we had a lot of constraints in getting that out. But I think this year we're going to do the same thing again this year. I think this year is going to be much better.
As it seems like everyone is really, I mean, especially myself included, like we've gotten to the point with Zoom where we know what to do with it now, and we can make it a little bit more exciting, right?
Right, yeah. Getting used to this game, so to speak. Yes.
So to take a complete left turn in our conversation, but one of the things that I was interested in talking to you about, obviously, is the Tai Seng stuff. So you were born, you grew up in Hong Kong. When you worked for Tai Seng, though, because they were in the Bay Area, right? So
they were in South San Francisco, correct?
Were you living in the U.S. at that point?
Yes, I was living in the Bay Area. Yes.
And how did you end up in the U.S.? Did you come here for?
I immigrated with my family.
Oh, okay.
When I was a little bit younger. Yeah.
And so what were you interested specifically in working in movies, or did you just kind of find your way into that?
No, what happened was actually at that time I was all set to work as a library assistant for the rest of my life. I was working full time at the public library, and one of my friends, she was working at Tai Seng at the time. She was working in the HR department, and she overheard them saying how difficult it was for them to find someone who can help them market Hong Kong movies to the English-speaking audiences. They just started the English department at that time. This was like early 1996.
Okay.
And so they interviewed, I guess, 10, maybe 20 candidates, and they didn't like all of them. And then she overheard it because, you know, the boss would go over and complain, say, oh, you know, we were having a hard time finding the right person and stuff. And then she remembered me. She remembered me, this guy who would go to Chinatown to watch Hong Kong movies every single weekend and who loved movies. And she said, well, I know somebody who might be a good fit. And so she reached out to me, told me about the job, and she said, you would be interested? And I hesitated because the pay was actually lower than my library job.
Oh, wow.
But I thought, you know, it came at a time when I was kind of getting bored with the library, to be honest. Just during that time, you know, because, you know, I figured, well, it just feels like this will be something that I'll be doing for the next 20, 30 years until I retired. And then this movies thing came along, and I thought that was kind of interesting. Maybe I should give it a try, you know. So I sent in the resume, went and got an interview. I actually had to fight with the person who interviewed me during the interview. You know, she was getting testy, and I got kind of upset, and we just kind of a little verbal thing going on. And then I thought, well, they're probably not going to hire me, and I didn't hear from them for like almost 2 months.
Wow.
And then I got kind of frustrated because, you know, I'm the kind of guy who would rather know are you going to hire me or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you either send me a rejection letter or at least give me a call and say, you know, we didn't choose you. And so I called them, and they said, oh, you know, we're still, you know, in the evaluation stage, but we can tell you that you're like one of the top candidates.
Oh, wow.
And then a week later, they call and officially offer me the job. So that's how I got started.
And that would so do you, and you mentioned going to like Chinatown and seeing movies. Is that something that you were doing like throughout your whole life? You would, or once you, I guess, moved to the U.S., you
Yeah,
would
yeah,
go.
yeah. Once I moved here, I just started going to China theaters on weekends. I would just go and see whatever releases they have. Back then we had what, three theaters? You had the Sun Hing, you had the Pagoda, you had the Great Star. So I would go maybe Sun Hing Friday night, Great Star Saturday, and then Pagoda Sunday, like that. And
Was
then
it?
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, you. Were they
Oh,
big
then I went to
crowds?
college, and then I went to college, but I still would drive back out. I went to Davis, which is like an
Okay, yeah.
hour's drive away. I would still drive out every weekend and go see the movies, and that
Were
went
the
on for like at least 5, 6 years.
were the crowds really excited? Was it like a fun place to go and see movies? Like people really excited about it, or was it
When
kind of
it's a
low
Jackie Chan
key?
movie, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even comedies, I mean, whenever there's a crowd pleasing movie, oh yeah, the crowd would go wild. They would cheer, they would laugh. The crowd reaction is just something that I feel kind of sad for the current generations of Hong Kong film lovers, because that's something that they couldn't experience anymore. Just to have this whole crowd gathering together, sharing the same experience, laughing, crying. So that was something really, really unforgettable, especially like for like a Jackie Chan movie like Drunken Master 2 or Project A2. It was incredible, man.
It was like I was the anticipation like through the roof for those Jackie Chan movies, like when he was like at the height of his fame and stuff.
Well, that and also knowing that, oh, there's a new Jackie Chan movie, you
Yeah.
know, because you wouldn't know when the next new release would be until they put the ad in the local newspapers.
Oh,
So like
okay.
they would change the movie on Friday, right? Just like American releases. But then they wouldn't start advertising the movie till like Thursday. So in
Okay.
order for you to know what the new movie is coming out that weekend, you actually have to read the Thursday newspaper to find out.
That must have been really fun though, like the anticipation of waiting for it and like getting
Yeah,
excited about it and stuff like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And also because at that time in the communication is not like now where internet allows you to know everything that's going on, overseas right away. Um, like you might know that, oh, there's a new Jackie Chan movie released in Hong Kong, but you wouldn't know when it's gonna come here. And then so all of a sudden, maybe a week, 2 weeks later, all of a sudden you saw this advertisement saying, "Oh, Project A2 is going to be showing this Friday." So it's that surprise pleasure, seeing
Yeah.
something that you've been waiting to see, all of a sudden being available for you to go see.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So when we were working at Tai Seng, were they doing? I hear a lot of stories of people who would find their tapes like in Chinatown at like markets and stuff like that. Were they? Would people mail order, or was it all like sending stuff out to video stores, or like what was the?
Um, well, there were several ways for people to get our movies back then, right?
Mhm.
You have the Chinatown video stores, so they would get the Tai Seng tapes on a weekly basis, which means whatever the new releases are that week, they get sent to the stores for them to rent.
Okay.
So that's regular every week. That happens every week. They have contracts with Tai Seng that they would carry. They would get whatever releases Tai Seng is coming out that week, and then they would rent them. Then you have the folks who are mostly English speaking, who would either mail us a letter with a check or even cash sometimes, buying the movies. With a letter say, "Oh, this is the movie that I want," blah blah blah, and then mailing address with the money, check. And then there are people who called. So what happened basically was when Tai Seng started realizing that there's this whole group of English speaking people out there who wanted to buy movies from Tai Seng. But then because the staff at that time didn't speak English or good English, they were having a hard time fulfilling those orders or helping those people. They have a couple of sales folks who can speak English, but then their main focus was still on the Chinese market. So as this demand from the English speaking fans grew larger, they realized that they should have a separate department handling those particular orders, those fans.
And so would the tapes that would go to the Chinatown stores, did those have English subtitles on them?
Yes, because, well, most of them,
Mhm.
and the reason was because it is legally required for Hong Kong movies to have both English and Chinese subtitles.
Oh,
Colonial,
okay.
right? Because
Yeah, okay.
British
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
so they must have both English and Chinese subtitles. So I would say maybe 90% of those films that get transferred on videotapes for Tai Seng to rent or sell all have English and Chinese subtitles. Burn in, of course,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when the master being used didn't have subtitles, that's when that particular title didn't have subtitles.
Okay.
And it's not Tai Seng's fault. That's just how the master came.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the studio or the distributor sent us the master, and just so happened to use a master that didn't have subtitles.
And so, do Tai Seng? Did they have their own duplication facilities? Like, did they make the tapes themselves from the
They
master,
they
or
do they do yes.
and the cover art too? Was that like designed in house, or was
No,
it?
cover art depends. For the English department, for my department, we would actually have local designer doing some of the designs.
Mm-hmm.
For the Chinese department, almost all the designs are actually done in either in-house or in Hong Kong.
Okay.
And then, uh, depending on where the design was done, they would either get printed here in the U.S. or get printed in Hong Kong and shipped over here.
So, and when there's someone sent me a tape of Drunken Master 2, and it has Vietnamese writing on it. And it was suggested in one of the comments on YouTube. I have no idea whether this is true. That was because there was a large Vietnamese population, like in and around Chinatowns in the U.S. Is that? Do you know anything about why that would have been in Vietnamese?
There are two reasons. We also have a Vietnamese department that specifically handles Vietnamese speaking
Oh wow.
fans.
Okay.
They're huge TVB fans. TVB, the TV series stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this entire Vietnamese department that specifically handle the Vietnamese demographics. So for them, all the insert, the flyers, what have you, would have to have Vietnamese languages, Vietnamese wording, and the TV series are all dubbed in Vietnamese. They're
Oh
dubbed in
wow.
LA.
Oh really?
Right,
Oh,
they're dubbed in
wow.
LA.
Okay.
So they cater to the Vietnamese market that way. The only reason someone who ordered a tape from us and got the Vietnamese flyer would be because we ran out of the English flyer.
Okay.
So we have to use the Vietnamese flyer,
Well,
Or it takes too much time to get them reprinted. And since they already have English titles on it, might as well just use them.
so is there like a secret enclave of like Vietnamese voice actors in LA, or would they just find like anyone who could speak Vietnamese to dub
No,
the?
no, no. They have a dubbing studio in LA.
Wow,
There's a
that's
Vietnamese
really
dubbing
cool.
studio in LA that they
Oh
use.
wow, that's really
Yeah,
cool. I had no idea.
right. So because
Um,
we have weekly stuff, so there's like tons of stuff for them to dub. So we have
okay.
to have this team, just for us to use, which is why there's this, dedicated team of Vietnamese dubbing crew in LA.
And so would they translate the movies too, like themselves, and then have the
Yes,
dub done?
they do the script and then they do the dubbing. Right. It's like a one-stop shop.
So it must have. It sounds like it was a pretty big company.
Well, so the U.S. office, we have about maybe 50 to 60 staff, and then we have the Hong Kong office. Hong Kong office is a little bit smaller, maybe half, or like 20 to 30 staff. And then there was a time where we actually also have offices in Canada and UK.
Oh wow.
So,
Okay.
but I think at the most we wouldn't have over 120 people total working in Tai Seng.
Okay.
On average, we have about 100 people, including the Hong Kong office.
Okay. And so when they would get the movies, would they? Was it? Did you just have agreements with like the studios or the companies that were making them, or would you buy like bulk groups of movies? Do you know
No,
like
no,
how
no. You,
they?
you no, no. You sign acquisition. You sign a contract. You buy the copyrights basically.
So is it
You
per?
because Tai Seng becomes their distributor in the U.S. So
Okay.
Tai Seng is their film's copyright owner in the U.S. We submit all the document to the U.S. Copyright Office. They will actually, every time we buy a film, our in-house legal department will actually fill out a form. It's called a certificate of copyright
Okay.
with the U.S. Library of Congress. So every film that we
So
bought,
for every single one of them, all the
yes,
paperwork was done. Wow,
yes,
that's wild.
yes.
Um, and do you know like who was making the decisions as to which movies they would they would pick up? I guess for distribution.
Well, we have an acquisition team in Hong Kong that does the
Okay.
buying. did the buying. I still think they're around. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean they've been gone for almost 10 years now, but still. No, the acquisition folks are in Hong Kong. So they try to buy the film from various studios.
Okay.
Now, of course, there was competition. In the beginning, there's also World Video, right? World Video is like our closest competitor in the Bay Area. And then once these films got more and more popular among the American demographics, we started getting competition from Fox Lorber, New Yorker, and of course, eventually Miramax, Columbia TriStar, Magnolia, those people.
Okay.
The pie started getting, bigger and bigger, and then our chances of getting good movies became smaller and smaller because there was more competition. But in the beginning, like World Video was our only competitor in the U.S. in terms of buying these films.
And so when the films came, would they? Because and I have to say, I have to preface this question by saying I know people get really angry about this. This doesn't, but it's not. I don't get upset about this at all. But I know some of the movies were edited. Um, from the Hong Kong versions when they were released on VHS in the US.
Well, what do you mean by edit? We don't cut out scenes. If you mean split them in half, is that what you mean?
I think so. From what I've heard, I don't actually have a VCR right now, so I don't. I can't tell you for sure because I haven't watched it. Someone sent me the Bullet in the Head tape.
Okay.
That's I think 118 minutes, and I know there's like a 125-minute version of that.
Yeah. No, we don't cut the films. We take whatever the masters, the Hong Kong distributor gave us. I mean, in the case of Bullet in the Head, it's pretty well known there were different endings, right?
Yeah.
You have the so-called boardroom ending,
Yeah.
with the skull and the gun,
Yeah.
and then you have the car chase ending. So I think I remember our version was the car chase ending. I think.
Okay.
When I saw the film in Hong Kong, it was the boardroom ending. But whatever version that we got them directly from the copyright owner in Hong Kong who gave us the master tape.
Okay.
So we never cut anything out.
And when they were split, was that just because there wasn't space on one tape for?
No, it was for rental purposes. At that time, it was thought that by splitting them into two, the video stores can charge double the rental fee, right? And of course, Tai Seng can also get a little bit more. So that's the main reason why the films got split into two tapes, part A, part B, and also the laser. I mean, we were just following what Hong Kong was doing on the laserdisc market.
Mm-hmm.
If you recall, like by mid '90s, Hong Kong started splitting the film and laserdisc into two discs, right? Mm-hmm. When they could easily fit them onto one disc, and that was for the rental market there. At that time, Hong Kong, like this Blockbuster, the KBS, and they were mostly renting a laserdisc. So the VHS practice of splitting the film into two came from the laserdisc version, the module.
Oh, that's interesting. So would it be?
Looking back, yes, it's a money grabbing scheme. Okay, but that there's also another reason for it too, and that's because when Tai Seng signed a contract with the videotape stores, the video stores, rental stores, there's a requirement that they get like a certain number of tapes from Tai Seng per year.
Okay.
So as a friend, they're not a franchise, but I guess you can call it a franchise, right? So as a Tai Seng, there's an official, Tai Seng video store that do rental. You are required to rent or buy up to say 2,000 tapes a month or what have you, right? Mm-hmm. So splitting them up kind of make that quota easier to reach, right? Because even though it's one film, it counts as two tapes.
Okay.
So it's easier for the rental store owner to fulfill that contract of getting 2,000 tapes from us, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So it's different, several reasons. In the end, everybody was trying to make a little bit more, right? So
yeah.
Because then they can charge twice the rental fees. So.
Yeah. And also those double boxes were pretty cool. I seem to remember from the VHS days.
Yeah.
So
no, we got when when we initially started the English department, I personally got a lot of heat from a lot of fans.
I think I told you via email that I waded into the Google groups, which is
Yeah.
not a particularly pleasant place to be.
Yeah, no, I try to defend, Tai Seng, try to defend the practices. In the end, the management just said, you know what, forget it. It's not worth the time. Yeah,
Mhm.
because haters gonna hate, right?
Exactly.
Whatever you
Yeah, I
say,
know you can't do anything
you
about it.
can't do
Yeah.
anything about it. Might as well leave them alone. So I got out of that thing. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, there were times I still remember, when somebody call and order, say, Drunken Master 2, I have to explain to them, oh, it comes in 2 tapes, so it's $40, not $20. And they will ask why, and I have to explain to them. And then some would order the tape and they'll call, say, hey, I got this part A or part B. Why is that? Why is this film as a part A and part B? Yeah, it was quite a lot of persuasion,
They wouldn't just
persuading.
they would call you and ask about it instead of just watching it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they want to know how come this film has a part A and part B.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And
then
so
by the time we start doing DVDs and Laserdisc, of course, that
that goes away, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
that sort of goes away.
When so when when the video stores had the agreements with it, could they choose whether they were going to buy them from you or rent them, or
No,
was it they would
they
just
basically have to buy everything, every new releases that are coming out from Tai Seng.
okay?
So every week, the sales folks would fax the stores. You remember fax machines? So they would
Yeah,
fax them
yeah.
the listing of, okay, this is the list. This is what we're releasing this week. So then the store owner would then mark, like, for this title, I want how many copies. This title, how many copies, and then they fax them back to the sales folks, and then they fulfill that order.
So there must be a
So
lot of these tapes just like floating around in the world somewhere. If were there a lot of them produced?
there were quite a lot, yes.
I
Well,
would
we have a
imagine, yeah.
warehouse. We have a warehouse right there in the office. We have the you know, at the height of our of Tai Seng's powers, right? We have our own, shipping department, right? We have our own warehouse. We have the whole warehouse. It's all in the same building complex. UPS is like, they said we are one of their favorite customers because they have to come and pick up shipments twice a day, every
Wow.
day, almost 5 days a week. We were one of their biggest local customers at that time, shipping to all these different distributors and stores and stuff.
And that was that in like the mid to late 90s.
This is mid to late 90s. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And then what? So and did Tai Seng did you transition to doing DVDs as well when that became like the main medium?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, not long after I started, we already started doing DVDs. I think maybe a little bit more than a year. I started in May of '96.
Okay.
So by '97, I think by the summer of '97, we started doing DVDs. Or we were about to start doing DVDs.
Okay.
Yeah, because I remember Bright White Hair. We did the Laserdisc in '96, and then I think that the DVD came out in '99 or '98, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's you did a commentary for that one too, didn't you? For did you
Not
do the
for for
Eureka?
Eureka, yes. Not
Yeah.
not for Tai Seng, but yeah, for Eureka,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
And so how long did you work at Tai Seng altogether?
12 years.
Oh wow. And then what did you what like because I in my knowledge of your career basically there's like a kind of a gap between Tai Seng and like the commentaries and stuff like that. What kind of stuff did you get up to after the Tai Seng years?
So I left Tai Seng, for several reasons. One is it was really for fam. The main reason was family.
Hmm.
My parents were not in very good health at that time.
Oh,
So I was spending 10, sometimes 12 hours a day just working at Tai Seng. There's no fun working for an Asian company to tell you the truth. Yeah, you don't get OT for one thing. So, but yeah, you were expected to work, over whatever hour you're supposed to work.
hmm.
So it got to a point where I realized that I need to spend more time with my parents because their health was failing,
Hmm.
and also I kind of saw what's going on with the video industry or with the Hong Kong film industry in the US. Sales were kind of going lower and lower every year. There were more competitors. It was much harder for us to get quality titles because of all these competition. And but the long hours and the family issue was the main thing that I decided to leave Tai Seng. So I left Tai Seng. I worked for a nonprofit company for about 2 years. Then I was persuaded to get a library degree because I
Okay.
was told that a librarian who can speak different languages were like a endangered species. So I would be in
Okay.
good demand.
Hmm.
So, I decided to get my library degree while I was working for a nonprofit. And then about two-thirds into my library degree, I got a job with the federal government.
Oh wow.
So I started working for the federal government in 2011, and then I finished my library degree at the end of 2011, and so I'm now working both with the government and also doing part-time librarian work.
Oh wow.
So don't want to waste that degree, right?
Yeah, right. You got to use it. My brother actually has a degree in library science, a master's degree.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I got mine from San Jose State. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, my brother went to oh god, I'm gonna forget it now. He went to Pratt in New York City, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
did mine entirely online. I've never been to campus.
oh
I still
really?
haven't been to campus. It's like the graduation was done at a hotel, so I didn't have to go to the campus.
Wow.
I've never been there.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Um uh so and then how did you get into with the audio commentaries? Was that something that people just offered for you to do, or did you
You mean with Eureka?
yeah, like the more recent stuff, yeah.
Oh, okay. The thing was, back in Tai Seng, I actually did two solo audio commentaries. Of course, I did
Wow.
all these commentary with Rick Myers, right?
Hmm.
Like I did quite a lot with Rick Myers. That was a lot of fun. And then near the end of my Tai Seng work years, I also did a couple of solo audio commentary. Um, and then, switched careers, of course. Thanks to Rick Myers, I have to thank Rick Myers for all this because um, I actually lost contact with Rick Myers for a few years after Tai Seng. Because there were like 5 or 6 years where I'd have no contact with Rick Myers whatsoever. And then we found each other again on Facebook, believe it or not.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, Facebook. One good thing about Facebook is you can find your long lost friends, schoolmates, what have you.
You can find
So
everyone on
anyway,
there, yeah.
so I started, communicating with Rick Myers again. I started doing the Comic Con panels again with him. Then somebody started asking Rick Myers for help in finding talents for a documentary on 1970s martial art films.
Okay.
And Rick immediately thought of me. So he introduced me to the guy who's doing the documentary. And so I became we started co-producing this documentary, which is still in the works. People who listen to my Eureka commentary will probably get frustrated now because I always mention this commentary. I mention this documentary, but it's still not done because we're still missing a couple of key talent that we want to interview. COVID kind of put a halt on that,
Yeah.
right? So anyway, so we were doing this documentary for a few years now, and then somebody from Eureka started reaching out to my co-producer, the documentary co-producer, looking for me. And the reason was Eureka at that time was about to release Last Word for Chivalry on Blu-ray.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And they, I guess somebody there was a Tai Seng fan or somebody who had the Tai Seng stuff. And he read my liner notes for Last Word for Chivalry. I did several liner notes, Laserdisc liner notes.
Oh, wow.
Like Last Hurrah, Prodigal Son, Duel to the Death, and Zoo Warriors. So he saw that liner notes for Last Hurrah and he liked it. And they were looking for so first they were trying to get permission to reprint my liner notes.
Okay.
So they need permission from me.
Yeah.
So they were looking for me, and apparently after a few months search, maybe not a few months, maybe 1 to 2 months, they finally found my co-producer who referred them to me. So that's how they found me.
Okay.
And I said, of course, and then they started asking me, would I be interested in doing audio commentaries? I said, are you kidding? Of course.
Why not? Right? Yeah.
Why not? So initially, so they told me, they're working on this Sammo Hung box set.
Mm-hmm.
And they also have Mike Leader doing commentaries on Eastern Condors and Magnificent Butcher.
Okay.
And they needed somebody to do the Iron Fisted Monk. For whatever reason, Mike didn't feel that he didn't maybe he didn't feel that there's enough material or what have you
Hmm.
to do a commentary for Iron Fist Monk. So they asked, would I be interested in doing it? And I said, of course, I'll do it. Then I found out by Eastern Condors. I said, you guys are doing Eastern Condors too, but they already committed Mike to do the commentary. And told him, you know what, this is my favorite Sammo Hung film. You gotta let me do Eastern Condors. And so they let me do it, and that's how it got started. I was kind of disappointed with myself for the Iron Fist Monk commentary. I didn't feel I did a good job. But then, I actually submitted the file to Eureka, saying, I haven't done this in a long time, almost 10 years. This is my first one in all these years. It might be kind of rough. If you don't like it, let me know, and then I can redo it or what have you. And they said, no, it's great. And I said, oh, okay. And then I did Eastern Condo, which myself was very satisfied with. So that's how it got started.
And when you did the liner notes for the Laserdisc, was that something that Tai Seng asked you to do, or did you want to do that?
That was something that I wanted to do. I brought that to the management's attention and said, because I told them I noticed like people like Criterion was doing liner notes, and since we were trying to be, we're trying to present Hong Kong films in a more classier, more sophisticated way, just like in a way it's kind of like Criterion. So why can't we do liner notes? And then that's how the liner notes got started, and that's how the audio commentary stuff got started as well. Because by then other distributors started doing audio commentaries. So.
And would the liner notes be printed like on the Laserdisc sleeve?
No,
Or
it's
would there
printed on
be
a separate sheet.
it's like an
It's printed on a
insert?
separate
Okay.
sheet. They were printed in-house. Well, not in-house, I'm sorry. It was printed by a local printer. We have a local printer in near Tai Seng. So he would print them. But then it got really complicated because we would be running out of liner notes. So let's say when we ran out of Laserdisc, we need to reprint the Laserdisc, right? But then we also need to reprint the liner notes. So it became a kind of effort to coordinate the printing of the liner, because once we printed the liner notes or reprinted the liner note, we have to send them to the Laserdisc manufacturer so they get inserted into the Laserdisc jacket.
Okay.
We cannot do it ourselves because we don't have a shrink. We don't have a shrink wrapping.
Because they're shrink wrapped, yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, so that's the problem. If we have a Laserdisc reorder, we need to reprint the Laserdisc. We have to not only reprint the liner notes, we also need to send them to the Laserdisc replicator so they can put it inside, wrap it, and then send it back to us. So it just took too long sometimes for the Laserdisc order to be refilled. Okay. And then distributors got kind of antsy, like people like Tower, Virgin Megastore, and they're saying, hey, where's our order? So I did maybe 5 titles, I think 5 liner notes. I did Wilson Mills, Lasera, Sioux Warriors, Duel to Death, and The Prodigal Son, and that's it. So after 5 liner notes, we thought, it's just too much work. Yeah, right. It's just a lot of coordination and a lot of logistic, difficulty. So we stopped.
Okay. Yeah. And when you do, I'm sorry that my questions are bouncing all over the place.
That's fine.
It's just like all this stuff is occurring to me as we're talking.
It's nice to go down memory lane. Let's put it this way.
Is it? That's good. Okay. When you compile the notes that you use to do the commentary tracks, because for instance, I believe on the Showdown or Throwdown, release, you said that you know Louis Koo, or you've met him before, or
no, I met him at the Hong Kong Film Awards.
Okay. So do you ever do you ever have like the opportunity to ask the people involved in the movie about the movie, or do you just find like print interviews or video interviews to like take notes from?
Most of the time I use print interviews.
Okay.
Yeah, take notes from. I would just search like Louis Koo and see anything related to Throwdown or anything. And I mean, I knew for a long time that he has a huge Star Wars toy collection. And
that was so interesting to me.
Yeah, he's a huge Star Wars fan, right? So he would rent this big warehouse just to store all of his toys, mostly Star Wars toys. He have these life-size figures, of all these, action figures, all these models and stuff. So I think one time some newspaper actually went to the warehouse and took all these pictures. So yeah, that was pretty neat. So I thought, well, yeah, this is something that maybe I should mention.
That's really cool. Is that were the Star Wars movies big in Hong Kong?
It was very big in Hong Kong. Yes, still is. Yeah, Marvels too. Marvel movies, DC movies, and all the comic book movies are. Most Hollywood movies are pretty big in Hong Kong.
Do they subtitle them or do they dub them?
They subtitle them. No, they don't dub them. It's
Yeah.
always subtitle, right?
Okay. Um,
With the exception of animation. Animation, there's
oh,
always a
really?
Cantonese version for the kids. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right. That makes sense because they can't read the subtitles,
Right,
right?
right. They
Yeah.
can't read it. The kids are too
Yeah.
young to read. So
That's like when they show the I live down the street from a movie theater that shows Miyazaki movies every year, and they do evening shows with subtitles, and they do the dub like in a matinee so that the kids can come and see the dub.
well, one time I was so frustrated. I went to see Porco Russo.
Hmm.
It was supposed to be the subtitle version. Remember what they were doing, like one night subtitle, one night dubbed,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So I went to the subtitle night. They showed the dub version, and I complained to the theater, and the theater said, "Oh, what happened was we thought there was no interest in the subtitle version, so we only
Oh,
requested
come
the dub.
on.
We only requested the dub DCP. So
Oh,
even though I was watching it on a night where they're supposed to show the subtitle version, they showed the dub version.
that
So
sucks.
quite upset.
I used to like before I had kids, I was like, why are they showing the dubbed version at all? But now that my son loves like Kiki's Delivery Service and stuff, so I'm very happy that they show the dubbed version because he can't read the subtitles.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is kind of a completely random question, maybe, but I mean, you've been watching these movies for so long, and you have such a depth and breadth of knowledge of them. And one of the things that I've noticed is a commonality when I talk to people who've been watching these movies for like decades and really love them, is there seems to be like a lamenting of the fact that I guess I mean I'm speaking obviously the context of the Western world, but the taste has gotten very narrow, and it's like we're watching Jackie Chan, Chow Yun Fat, Donnie Yen, like a couple other things, John Woo, and that's kind of like it. And are there movies out there or like a genre or actors or directors or someone like that that you really kind of lament the fact that people are not paying attention to them or watching those films and are only really kind of focusing on certain things?
You talk about the current directors or the past directors?
Just, I mean, I guess just in general, just like, because like, for instance, I had someone tell me recently that it really bums them out that the Hui brothers are not really well known. And they thought that
Michael
they're
Hui,
the,
Sam Hui.
yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, they're huge. They were huge in Hong Kong in the 70s and early 80s. They, all of the like the first 4 or 5 movies, they're all classic. But these are comedies. You know, you have to realize the fact that these are comedies um, specifically meant for the Cantonese speaking audiences.
Hmm.
So a lot of the humor or language based, wordplay and all that stuff. So sometimes it's hard for Westerners to get that joke.
Hmm.
One thing you notice in my commentary, especially in the Lucky Star film, was my focus on the wordplay. I always try to mention why this scene was funny. It's
Hmm.
because of what they were saying and how they were twisting the words. Like I'll give you a perfect example. In My Lucky Stars, Eric Zhang's character, you know, Stanley Fong was complaining to Sammo Hung, why are you bringing him along? And Sammo said, well, if he's very obedient, he'll listen to my command and stuff. And then Stanley Fong said, well, if you tell him to go poke guy, will he do it? So poke guy, of course, literally means falling down the street, but it also means asshole in Cantonese. So there's a little wordplay, right? And
Yeah.
so Samo turned to Eric and said, hey, Eric, why don't you go poke guy, So, and then Eric would just went and jumped and, fall on the ground and he said, hey, big brother, I just poked guy, like that. So, people would laugh because he was playing the word,
Hmm.
So the idea of that joke was not only is he going to obedient and listen to, to Samuel, but the fact that he's willing to, just use this word and twist it around, because when you say somebody's a poke guy, you're really saying this guy's an asshole. But in this case, Eric was taking the term literally, and so that's why he went and fell on the
Threw
street.
himself down the street.
Right. So
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
this kind of wordplay that I was trying to emphasize in the commentary. A lot of these jokes are somehow, missed by Western audiences. And the the funny thing I thought was the Stephen Chow comedy. A lot of the jokes in Stephen Chow comedies are all wordplay, Cantonese wordplay. Yet there seems to be a bigger acceptance by the Western audiences than like you said, the Hoi comedies.
Hmm.
Maybe because the Hoi comedies is from maybe one generation prior, 70s, 80s, and then Stephen Chow is like 20 years after.
Yeah.
And he also Steven also has a little bit more physical comedy, a little bit more facial gestures and stuff
Hmm.
that somehow Westerners can associate with. Whereas the Michael Hoyt, the Hoyt brothers stuff is really maybe 80% wordplay and 20% physical.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's, yeah, I do agree that the Hoyt brother comedy should be more well known among the Western audiences, especially those who like Aces Go Places.
Yeah, yeah, that series. Yeah, actually sometimes surprised by, because my impression of that series is that it's like like an all-time classic like Hong Kong film series, and I'm surprised that especially younger fans like have never even heard of it in some cases.
Yeah, I'm surprised. So Aces Go Places were huge in Hong Kong. Remember Aces Go Places beat Dragon Lord at the 1982 Hong Kong box office,
Wow, did it
and
really?
yeah, and had Aces Go Places not beat Dragon Lord, there wouldn't have been a Winners and Sinners. It was Golden Harbor's revenge on Cinema City for Aces Go Places beating Dragon Lord. That's why Raymond Chow wanted their own, his own Aces Go Places series, and that's how Winners and Sinners was born.
That's really, and then they crossed over at some point, didn't
Yeah, well,
they?
Eric Zhang, joined
Yeah.
joined them in the second and third film, so there's like a little friendly competition going on.
Winners and Sinners is one of my favorite like classic movies of that period. I love that movie so much. I'm really excited actually. I just got the Eureka release yesterday,
Hey,
so
I
I'm really
haven't got mine.
excited.
So
You
you,
haven't really?
yeah, and I'm worried maybe they have run out already. I heard they ran out of the first press already.
Are they? Did they send it from the UK?
They sent it directly from the UK. Everything is
Yeah.
shipped from
So
the UK.
I know that I think in part because of COVID, but also because of Brexit, the UK mail system is like a disaster right now.
Yeah, I just hope that I get my copies because the first one, only the first one have the slipcase and
Yeah. Well, I'll send you mine once I watch it if you never get
sure you will.
it.
You won't sell it on eBay?
um, I don't think I've ever sold anything on eBay. I buy stuff on eBay all the time,
No,
but
I'm sure they saved my copies. So I just probably
um,
haven't done it yet.
with the I could just one more question about the Lucky Stars thing because I don't want to keep you here all night. But
Oh, we
one
can
of
talk.
the things that I've been seeing consistently about when since these films have been re-released is that people feel they're kind of dated now. Um, and so when you do the commentary, are you like aware of the fact that people might be thinking like, oh, these films are dated? Should I
Of
talk about
course,
them?
of
Is it
course. No,
yeah.
no, I mentioned it in the commentary. I mentioned how, oh yeah, this is definitely not politically correct. I mean, especially all the,
Yeah, there's
yeah.
definitely some stuff
I
in
mean,
there
the,
that's
the sexual
not.
innuendos, the physical comedy towards the ladies. Oh
Hmm.
no, no, no way can you do it nowadays. But back then, there's no such term as politically correct, right? People are not aware of sexual harassment and stuff. I mean, it's just a different. I mean, remember this was almost 40 years ago, right? So
Yeah.
people thinking were different, and also we talk about a primarily Asian society where there's always this feeling there's a male dominance factor in that, of course more so in Japan at that time, but
Hmm.
even in Chinese societies, like the men always kind of come first, and they always dominate like office environment or what have you. There's all these adult entertainment nightclubs, all this stuff. So it's generally acceptable to have ladies treated that way back then. And I mean, you can tell that like Samuel tried to show that, oh, we're just doing this for fun, like the ladies never really get harassed, right? I mean, they wouldn't, they talk about raping, like the My Lucky Star, Stanley Fong said, I'm going to go in and rape Sibel Hui, Of course, he never did, and
Yeah.
they sort of also get their comeuppance in Twinkle Twinkle Lucky Stars, when they were tricked by that new group of ladies,
Hmm.
but it was a different time, and you have to remember though too, even though they're all these kind of lowbrow humor, they were meant for family watching. They were released during summertime, during Chinese New Year for My Lucky Stars, so it was meant to be family entertainment. Um,
And
and
was there like I don't really know that much about the rating system other than the categories.
they didn't have the category until like the early '90s
Okay.
when they
So
started having all these pretty gruesome films, right?
yeah.
Like Untold Story and all that stuff. So that's when categories, they have these categories. But in the '80s, at that time, there's still no specific category. It's either suitable for children or not suitable for children. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're pretty broad categories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in terms of like other directors that you think the Western fans should be aware of, well, the older ones, I think definitely An Hui.
Hmm.
An Hui should, An Hui deserves to be recognized as much as people like, Johnny To or Ronnie Yu, you know.
I always see her movies at the top of lists that I'm looking at of like Hong Kong movies. And I actually just got like a couple days ago a Blu-ray copy of the story of Wu Viet,
Mhm.
which I've never seen before. And one of the bonus features is the entire movie of Boat People. So now I have
Oh
both of
yeah,
those to
yeah.
watch.
Well, Bobby was now on Criterion Channel too.
Is it really?
Mhm. Yeah, Bobby
Um,
was a masterpiece. I think. Yeah, of course, she doesn't deal with, she do all different kind of. I mean, what's amazing to me is the fact that Anhui can do all kinds of genre films. You have
mhm.
drama, you have historical. She even did Book and Sword, sort of like a semi martial art film. Um, so she's capable of doing all these kind of different storytelling. All these different genres. So yeah, I think she'll be remembered as one of Hong Kong's finest directors. Um, the newer ones, I really like Fei Pang Wong. He did one of the segment for 10 years.
Okay.
So he's kind of visual like Wong Kar Wai was. He does a lot of visual things. Um, but yeah, a lot of newcomers coming out. Some of the recent films I like G Affairs. I thought G Affairs was a fantastic Hong Kong film. Yeah. So there are newer crop that people that deserve to be recognized because of what they've done so far.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I mostly, I feel like I'm missing a step because I mostly focus on like the older stuff on my channel, especially because all these re-releases are coming out, and I like I was like a little overwhelmed
Well,
by
yeah, I mean, and
watching everything.
I
But
don't blame you too because the newer stuff is much harder to see overseas unless you go to a film festival.
hmm.
There's no distribution here anymore. I mean, Welco is the only company in town, so to speak, when it comes to distributing Hong Kong films
Yeah,
or whatever action films, right?
yeah, they seem to have everything.
Yeah, well, there's no, they're like the only game in town now. And then the other stuff, the newer non-action stuff, the only way you can see them is at film festival. At least a little bit easier now, thanks to COVID. With all these virtual film festival, it's easier for
Yeah,
people to sign up and watch them. But like some of these films, unless you go to like New York Asian Film Festival, there's no way you can see them in the US.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of a bummer, honestly. And I see like trailers on YouTube, and I'm like, that movie looks really interesting. And then I try to
Mhm.
find it, and I'm like, nope, it's not anywhere. Yeah, so,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, well, I guess that's a good place to kind of wind down. But thank you so much for everything tonight, for your time. This is like a really great conversation.
Well, we can talk more later. I mean, I just feel like we're just getting started.
I know, yeah. I mean, I could do this for hours, but
Yeah.
I mean, if you'd be willing to come back, I would love it. I think that'd be awesome. But
I just want to say, I mean, I just want to thank people for buying these Eureka titles. I mean, I feel that I'm so lucky to be able to me, there's like a second career, right? I mean,
yeah,
like a reborn of my Hong Kong film, promotion or marketing career. And I always miss that, ever since I left Tai Seng. So to be able to have this opportunity for me to share my love, share my passion, for the films I grew up with, it's just fantastic. And I'm also glad that they're also releasing newer stuff too, not just old classics, like Throwdown, I guess
hmm,
Time and Tide, even though Time and Tide is actually 20 years already, amazing. But I'm sure we will have newer films coming out later. And so I look forward to doing more commentaries, and I hope that people will continue to support, Eureka. Eureka, they're not big, they're not a big company.
hmm.
Um, and I know that there are a lot of people buying like Bright White Hair, the Lucky Star series. So there are very good fan base out there supporting them, buying their movies. But if we keep doing this, then there will be more quality Hong Kong films that Eureka will bring to us.
I'm really excited for the Time and Tide was actually the because I think I was like 18 when that movie came out, 17 or 18, and that was the first Hong Kong action movie. Other I had seen Jackie Chan movies before. That was like the first one that I saw. So I'm really excited to watch because it's been years since I saw that movie. So I'm really excited to watch that again and to listen to the commentary and
I
everything.
actually
So it's
deliberately not listen to the Troy Hart commentary because I didn't want to repeat what he said. I still haven't heard the Treyarch commentary.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, the Eureka Time and Tide will have the Treyarch commentary as well as my commentary.
Hmm.
And so when they asked me to do Time and Tide, I specifically asked them, will you include the Treyarch commentary? They said yes. And then so I said to myself, I'm not going to listen to his commentary because I don't want his whatever he covered to influence what I'm going to talk. So hopefully there won't be any overlapping, which I think there wouldn't be.
That's good. Yeah. So I'm really excited for that. Really. Are there more? Are you not allowed to say what else is coming because it's like they haven't announced it yet, or is there more
Actually,
stuff on
there
the
will be an
horizon?
announcement tomorrow. There will be
Okay.
an announcement tomorrow. So expect some Hong Kong titles being announced tomorrow.
Okay,
It
that's
could be
exciting.
something big.
Okay, good. Well, by the time I post this, then everyone will know probably, and they
It's
can.
true. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Very true,
All
yeah.
right. Well, I'll be excited for tomorrow at least. Then, yeah. So yeah, I mean, thank you again so much for everything. This is really great.
Well,
Um,
thank you for establishing this appreciation society. I mean, it's always nice to see, classic Hong Kong cinema being appreciated by a new generation of fans or old, fans old and new, right? That so that people know there was a time when Hong Kong was making some of the finest cinema in the world.
Yes, it's been really amazing meeting people in the community through doing this channel, like people who reach out to me. And that's how I met Rick. Like I befriended one of Rick's friends through Instagram. And then he's like, "Hey, do you want to meet Rick Myers?" And I was like, "Yeah." So that's how I met him. And then that's how I met you. Yeah. So it's been really amazing for me. So I'm very humbled that I've got to meet all these people and talk to them and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, I'm humble too. To me, this is like an amazing journey too. To be able to just do this, do what I love, again. Yeah. So
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a nice evening.
as well. Take care.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you
Bye.
later.